So let's have a little chat, shall we? Let's have a little occult chat. This is your host, The Occult View. I was getting ready to make a video about one thing, but I decided I don't want to talk about that. But let's just say this. There is a property manager, my property manager, who has a very unpleasant surprise that's coming to him very, very soon. Very, very soon. He will be fired, he will be let go, and he will become a vagabond in the name of the universe. Let's have a conversation. I stand corrected. I think Andrew Tate has children from some of the other videos that I've seen, right? He does have children. So I stand corrected on that. But I still have questions about him. And I know I've been on this Andrew Tate kick, you know what I'm saying, or whatever the case may be. I find it so interesting that all of you motherfuckers that has so much to say negatively about America. I know America can be a very challenging place sometimes. And I know sometimes America can be unjust. I know sometimes America can be a bitch. I know that. I get it. This is my country. I understand that things happen in this country that I am not always proud of. I understand that. You know? But what I don't understand about people like Andrew Tate, what I don't understand about people like him, now all of a sudden, he's trashing America. He's trashing Joe Biden, which he's really no different than Joe Biden or any of the rest of the politicians. He uses the same neurolinguistics that they use to obtain and maintain whatever. But I was listening to him say something about America and how America is just so fucked up and all of these other things, right? But this man and his brother, they have benefited from the American dream. Number one, he talks about, now he did an interview talking about he doesn't do any forms of drugs. He said he's never even experimented with weed, right? Even I've experimented with weed. Come on now. Even I've done that. But he did a tour of his house years ago, and all you saw in his refrigerator was a bunch of liquor and wine and beer. But yet, you're boasting about, he had no food in his refrigerator, by the way. No food. So the only thing he was living off of was wine. I'm sorry, champagne, not wine. Champagne and beer and liquor. Practically no food. I think he had a couple of steaks, but that was it. And you're telling me that this is a role model for someone who wants to be successful and prosperous? When I looked in that refrigerator, I said, "This nigga's a poor motherfucking nigga. That's a poor man's mentality." When I look in somebody's refrigerator, I want to see food. Like when you look in mine, you see food. You see steak, chicken, pork chops, ground turkey. I really don't like hamburger like that. You see roast beef, you see chicken breast, you see shrimp, you see fruit, you see vegetables, you see ice cream. When you go in my pantry, you see Kool-Aid, sugar. You get what I'm saying? Now he's trashing America after benefiting from everything the American dream has to offer. But I guess in his case, it turned into a nightmare. And I'm going to say it again. You signed the contract, now you don't want to fulfill it. And now your handlers are coming after you. And now he's doing damage control saying that, oh, none of this stuff is true. They're lying on me. They're not lying on you. They're not making anything up on you. They're not lying on you. You reneged on the contract, and now they are exposing your secrets, the things that you were doing behind closed doors that they were filming. So now he thinks he's being clever by coming out trying to do them tit for tat. Like, I'm going to expose you to try to get you off of my back. But it's really not working. It's not working. It's making you look more and more foolish. Why do people think that he is the epitome of masculinity? You know, when I was growing up, even though I'm gay, I can recognize a strong heterosexual man. And when I was coming up, good, bad, or indifferent, I was raised around strong. I mean, maybe not all of them in my family, but I was raised around, and I was around, at least when I went to school and stuff, I was around strong heterosexual men. And one thing that I know that strong heterosexual men did not do, they didn't take off their shirts and pose in pictures and standing in certain pose, positions. They didn't do all that. They weren't walking around shirtless and, trying to prove. Andrew Tate and his brother, Tristan, they have something to prove. They are not alpha, or what you call alpha masculine men. And even that term alpha is really misplaced and incorrect when defining and identifying heterosexual men who are comfortable in their masculinity and who have their shit together. Because I had a conversation with a heterosexual man some years back, and he told me he didn't like the term alpha. I forgot everything that he said, but basically, if I can remember, he said that alpha, the term alpha, really feminizes basically what he was trying to say, and I'm using my own words. Basically, that feminizes men. It's more along the lines of being a hyper masculine man, which usually hyper masculine men like Andrew Tate and his brother, and I'm not saying that they do this, but I'm saying usually hyper-masculine men like that, they cannot wait to bend over and spread their cheeks for another man. Yes, I said it. A lot of hyper-masculine men are on the DL. My uncle was one of them, or is one of them. Well, I'm not going to say unfortunately. He don't think I know, but I know. He's one of them. He was so busy trying to, degrade me because he thought I was going to be gay while trying to cover up his own homosexuality. When you have to go around, I'm a man. Well, who are you trying to prove that to? And I'm going to say this to a lot of the heterosexual men that listen to Andrew Tate. I'm going to say this to you all. Most of you are probably more manly than him. Because from the looks of it, what has he done? He's talking about all this stuff about what has he actually done? What has he done? Who has he defended? What has he done? What makes him the epitome of masculinity? Because he talks words that people want to hear, because he appeals to a certain weak sector of men. And I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm sorry, but not sorry. I'm just asking a question. These people are put in place. Andrew Tate and his brother are orchestrated people that are put in place. They are put in place for agenda-based purposes. But now all of a sudden America is so bad. Why is America so bad? Or America is bad because the corporation of America is no longer accepting you. That's because you betrayed the corporation. Once you signed your soul over to them, you have to do whatever they tell you to do. And see, now he's angry and bitter because the money is not flowing the way that he wants it to. The money is not flowing the way that him and his brother wants it to flow anymore because they seized all of their accounts. Andrew Tate don't like women. He don't like women. I'm not calling him gay, but what I'm saying is he does not like women. You can tell by how he talks about women that he really does not like women. And that type of vitriol is, and it has spilt over into the regular world. See, what's happening is, I'm going to tell you what's happening. A lot of these people that were once connected and had access to the fake virtual world of, I guess you could say so-called, elitism, which is really a virtual reality. They had to take off those virtual reality headsets, and I'm speaking in layman terms, not literal terms. I'm speaking, in figuratively terms, figurative terms. They had to take off the headsets. Andrew Tate had to take off the headsets. Him and his brother. They were denied access to that world, to that virtual world. And now they're in the real world and they don't know how to cope. They can't survive. And this is the case for a lot of people that are so-called elite. Same thing happened to Wendy Williams. The same thing is getting ready to happen to P. Diddy as well. They're getting ready to disconnect him from that world. And that's what's happening to Andrew. That's what's happening to Andrew Tate. So now they're in the real world. They're in the real world now, and now they have to find a way to survive in the real world. Because the virtual world that they know how to maneuver in, that world is no longer accepting their access code. The codes have been changed. So now they're trickling down into our world, which is the real world. They're trickling down into our world. And they're trying to tell us that we should be like these people. These people that don't even have any control over their own lives anymore. On a side note, I was looking at an old Larry King interview. I don't know the older gentleman that he was interviewing, right? But the conversation was about death, being afraid of death, and life after death. And Larry King asked the gentleman who was pretty much up in age, he's probably in his late 80s. And Larry King asked the gentleman, "Are you afraid of death?" He said no. He said the only thing that really perplexes him is the thought of, going to sleep. No, 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 let me go back. Larry King asked him, "Are you afraid of death?" He said no. Then Larry King asked him, "Do you believe you go anywhere?" He said no. He said, "I just believe that once you die, it's like going to sleep and you never wake up again." Okay, fair enough. But then he said the thought of that, of never existing again, he said, like, the thought of forever is just like overwhelming. And I went down into the comment section, and everyone has a right to their own views and ideas or whatever the case may be. Everyone does. And some people believe in an afterlife, some people don't. But it was just the vitriol that I saw coming from people who did not believe in an afterlife. It's either they believe in an after it's either they believe in an afterlife, or they believe in the Christian doctrine of life after death. But the people who did not believe in an afterlife, they were very ambivalent. They were very rude. They were very nasty towards the people who said, they do believe in, life after death. And somebody said in the comments, well, consciousness does not die. Our bodies die, but our consciousness does not die. And somebody said, well, prove it. Well, okay. You're asking that person to prove it. Well, why don't you disprove it? You understand what I'm saying? And my question is, why so much ambivalence about it? If you don't believe in an afterlife, that's fine. Nobody's forcing you to believe in it. Nobody's asking you to believe that there's something after, the physical body dies. I know that there's something after the physical body dies, and I don't have to prove it to no motherfucking body but myself. Because when I no longer exist in the physical, it will be only me and my true self that I will have to deal with. But you know something? Spirit told me something. Spirit showed me something and said, the people who say that there is no afterlife, you really got to listen to what they're saying. Those people who say that there's no afterlife, they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right. There is no afterlife for those people. See, we're not all made the same. It's not what people think. Everyone thinks, oh, we all come from the source. No, we don't. No, we don't. Andrew Tate does not come from the source. I don't care what religion he practices. We all don't come from the source of life. Some people are, how can I put it? Some people are made up of essences. So when they die, they don't have a soul or a spirit. So when they die, the essence it ceases to exist unless they can go to another body before that physical body dies. Because the only thing that keeps them in existence is a physical body. Whereas if you are a spiritual being, a true spiritual being from the universe and the true source, when your physical existence no longer sustains your spirit or whatever, you go through the death process, and then you can either come back in another body or in another form, or you can go on to a higher dimension or whatever the case may be. And when you have people who say, well, prove that there's an afterlife, there is proof all around us that nothing never really dies. But when you point to it, the proof is not good enough for them. There have been countless studies and books that have been written, and I'm not just talking about near-death experiences. Because just because you don't have a near-death experience, if you're facing a medical emergency, it doesn't disprove that there is no afterlife. It just simply means that you did not have an NDE. Everybody does not have them. I know what it was like before being in the flesh. It was the most peaceful and the most beautiful experience that you could ever imagine. There was no pain. There was no happiness. There was no joy. It was just peace. And it was like a purple light that emanated about me. It was like a purple light or something that was emanating. This was before I was born. So some of us do not have that the people that believe that there's no afterlife. You're right. For a lot of you, it may not be. And the reason that they know that is because they understand that from their own consciousness. Because they can't and they do not have the experiences that we have. Those of us who are eternal. Everybody is not eternal. Some of you are essences. And when your body dies, your essence dies with it. And we can see those types of people who do not have the gift of eternal life or immortality. We know who they are. They're the ones who are trying to, find ways to escape death. Like this new technology that I hear they're coming up with where they're doing head transplants. So if you're a person who has a lot of money, I guess, and your body begins to shut down, they say that your brain can still function and be preserved for 200 or 300 years on a new body or something like that. So they will take your head and put it on another body, a body that has been perfected. And that's because those people know that once they die, they will no longer exist. They won't feel the peace of the other side. They won't feel that. And I think that people like Andrew Tate are one of those types of people. I think a lot of these people that they present us with in social media and tell us to follow them, the ones that have millions of followers and people worshiping them. See, what those people are trying to do, they're trying to gain access into you. They're trying to gain access into you. And you are so busy thinking that this person is so great. But in actuality, you're the one that is great. You and your little bit of subs and followers, you're the one that's great. The people that have all of these subscribers and all of these, all of these followers, these people are the ones who need you. You don't need them. Andrew Tate needs you. You don't need him. You were doing fine before he came on the scenes. But now America is bad. No, America is not bad. You reneged on the contract that you had with the corporation. You reneged on the contract. And now they coming for that ass. And now you're trying to find spirit. Andrew Tate is trying to find soul and spirit through various religions. But you're not going to find it that way. You're not going to find it that way. You have to cultivate. If you want to, and there's nothing saying that you can't get a soul of your own. But the way to go about that is not belittling women and trying to use women as slaves, practically. You have to show some humility, not to another person, but you have to show humility to that higher part of you. So when people say that there's no afterlife for those people, they're absolutely right. There is none for them. Because they are a different type of energy. And I know people say energy never dies, and you're right, energy never dies, but essences can die. They can die. And a lot of these people, they're just in essence taking up a little, not taking up, but they're an essence that's here on a temporary basis. And that is why they cannot grasp the fact that there is an afterlife. And I'm not saying that the afterlife is like what we see in Hollywood or what we, hear from, religion. No, it's not a physical experience. The afterlife is not a physical experience. It's not like you're going to be walking around with legs and arms and a mouth. No, it's not like that. It will just be your mind and who you really are. And I have experienced that in meditation. People say that there's no proof of an afterlife, and yes, it is. Look around you. Does anything really die? Does anything really die? And I know what people are going to say. Well, people die. Well, yeah, people do die. But their spirit and their soul doesn't die. Just because you can't see it and because you can't communicate with it doesn't mean that that person is completely gone. And a lot of people don't understand spirit communication anyway. So if you don't understand it, how can you say it doesn't exist? And this ain't up for debate because I know what the fuck I know. And I don't give a fuck about no fucking debate. I know what I know. I'm coming from a place of knowing. People say that there's no proof of reincarnation. Yes, it is. You just brush it off as dreams at night. When you're dreaming at night and you're coming in contact with places and things in your dreams, you're like, where the fuck where that come from? Who the fuck is that? I've never experienced that in waking life. So why am I dreaming about that? That's because you tapping into a past life, bitch. Your subconscious is always talking to you. But you know what people do? They ignore it. They ignore it. And they'll say, oh no, it's just a dream. See, I examine my dreams and I decode them to understand. I had a dream one time, not long ago, that I was on drugs. I was on heroin really bad. I had a dream that I was on heroin. And I felt the effects of it. I felt the despair. And then finally, Spirit said, that's because you was tapping into a past life. I said, bitch. Maybe that's why I am so adamant in this life about not using drugs. Maybe that's why I stay away from drugs and a lot of and alcohol and stuff like that in this life. Because of what I went through in maybe a past life. And maybe I evolved enough where I'm not carrying that burden over with me. Just speculation, I don't know. And here's another thing. We all are questioning and have questions. All of it is really speculation when you really boil down to it. Now, I can say I know what I know. But at the end of the day, we all have questions. But for those people who don't believe in the afterlife, that's because you will not experience one. And that's not, and I'm not trying to say that to weaponize that against you, but what I'm saying is that you have to stop interfering in other people's spiritual journey. You don't believe in spirit, you don't believe, and that's fine. The people that don't believe in spirit, really and truthfully, they don't have one. They're just animated by an essence. They don't have one. They don't have a conscience. That is why some of them are able to do some of the most heinous things that they do. Some of the people that people revere, even in history, you want to know why some of those people have not reincarnated? Because they were just an essence. And they did not do enough spiritual work to cultivate and to evolve into having a soul. See, those of us who can reincarnate and who can go on and beyond this place, we have done the spiritual work, whether we recognize it or not. We have done the spiritual work. The people who call themselves so-called elitist, they are essences. And that is why they are trying to stay on the earth. Because they know once that they die, that's it for them. There is nothing else. That is why they're trying everything they possibly can to evade and to avoid physical death. That is why they're trying to come up with all these technologies to, for the elite, so they can stay in the physical world. Because they know once they leave this world, that's it for them because they lack spirit and soul. That's why they are able to do some of the things that they do. That is why you have a man like Andrew Tate who can say that he would rather put a bullet in a woman's head than allow a woman to become, he would rather put a bullet in a woman's head than allow a woman to come between him and his brother. He said it. I saw the clip. That is why he can say those things. That is why he can act the way that he acts. That is why he can move the way that he moves. Because he don't have no spirit. That's why he's trying to find one. First in Christian, because he was an atheist, remember, at first. He was an atheist, and I know that for a fact. Then I guess he moved on to Christianity. He was an atheist. He didn't believe in God. And most people like him that are atheists, that don't believe in spirit, that don't believe in God or anything beyond this place, most of them act just like he does. They are methodical and they're intellectual. So they won't understand the language of the spirit. I'm intuitive and I am spiritual. So I'm not intellectual. I don't have to be. I could be, But there's evidence. There have been books written about the afterlife. Dolores Cannon, Michael Newton, Sylvia Brown, and I know Sylvia Brown. A lot of people think she's a con artist, and whatever the case may be. But at one time, I think Sylvia Brown was really doing some real work. But then she got caught up in the Hollywood shit. So you don't have to believe in an afterlife. You don't have to. Because most of you won't experience an afterlife anyway. The ones who believe that. You won't anyway because you haven't done the spiritual work and you're not spiritually evolved enough to actually experience anything beyond this place anyway. And Jesus is not coming to help you do that. He already left you the instructions on what you needed to do to advance your spirit and your soul. But instead of you all doing that, you turned it into a religion and you started worshiping a phantom figure. When the story, when the teachings of Christ was nothing, it was nothing more than an allegory to tell you how to advance your soul and your spirit. So you can create the paradise that he talked about. Creating your own reality. Quantum, what do they call it? Quantum mechanics, I guess you could say. Quantum World 101. That's all he was talking about, was creating your own reality. The kingdom is within you. For those people who embody that type of spirit. So the ones who keep saying there is no afterlife, there's no proof of it, you are absolutely right. There is no afterlife for you. You are just like the elites. When you leave this world, you will experience something that is that you can't even comprehend. You're right. How did you get in the world? I don't know. But everybody don't have a soul. Everybody don't have a soul. Some people are just essences. Some people are just essences. And some people with essences are very nice people, but it's just what it is. And what does it mean when you only have an essence? It simply means that you have not advanced spiritually enough to have a soul. You just haven't done the work. And a lot of you all have not done the work. That is why it is okay for you to be a psychopath without a conscience. That is why it's okay for you to do some of the things that you do to other people and don't have any remorse for it. That's why. That's why you have world leaders who can create all this chaos and mayhem and all of these different things and death for other people because they don't have a soul. There are soulless people in the world. And a soulless person is simply a person that will not experience anything beyond this place because they've not done the work. A soulless person is simply someone who has not evolved spiritually enough to have spiritual insight and understanding of self. To me, that's what a soulless person is. I think that the afterlife is anything that you want it to be. Your afterlife will be individually based and individual to you, and not just based on this life, but based on all of the lives you have lived, all of the lives that are stored in your super consciousness within the quantum realm. That's what I meant, quantum realm work. That's what I meant when I was talking about creating your own reality, when I was talking about Jesus. Quantum realm work. That's all Jesus talked about. He just didn't call it that. That's quantum realm work, creating your own reality. But when you die, You create your own reality based upon your your superconscious. Let me say that. Because the subconscious is part this world, part the quantum world. Subconscious, partially in this world, partially in the quantum world or the spiritual realm. But when you die, you create your own reality outside of this realm. But because people are not connected the way that they used to be, they don't understand that. That's just like the whole story of Noah and the great flood, Noah's Ark. That whole story was about the denigration of the DNA of the humans on the planet at that time. And I've talked about that. Remember, they said that the people on the planet at that time were big, strong, powerful giants that had a lot of spiritual knowledge. And they said that God was displeased with them because they had this spiritual knowledge. So God unleashed a flood to destroy them. But in actuality, it was really explaining the change within the DNA of human beings on the planet at that time. And that coincides also with the story of Atlantis, how we were at a pinnacle of our DNA. We were living longer, we were more spiritual, we were more spiritually in tune. But then, like now, we started to fall into ignorance. Because has anybody noticed, and I've been saying this for years, we are up under the Atlantis effect. Weren't they experimenting with animals and human parts in Atlantis? They're doing that now. Haven't you all been hearing about how they did a pig heart transplant where they took the heart of a pig and put it into a human being? They were doing the same shit in Atlantis, allegedly. According to the mythology, they were doing all types of weird experiments and stuff. And we're following that same trajectory. We're following that same trajectory. So we're up under the Atlantis effect. The truth is right in front of people's face, but they will say that it's not the truth. There is proof all around us that life does not cease at the time of physical death. There's proof of that all around us. And as Black people, we understood that more than anyone else. But we've given up. A lot of us have given up our power for money and fame and other pleasures that ultimately take away your soul and it replaces it with an essence. So when people talk about a lot of Hollywood people, oh, they're cloned and all that. No, what they're talking about is that that person no longer has a soul. They're now an essence. And an essence has to be up under a master teacher. Not a master teacher. An essence has to be up under another person. Another person has to control you and your essence when you're an essence. A lot of them no longer have a soul, they're essences now. And that is how they're able to be controlled. See, the people with souls, they take them out because they can't be controlled. Andrew Tate is an essence. He's an essence. Him and his brother, they're an essence. They don't have a soul. Anyway, that's all I have to say. This is the occult view. You can like this. I encourage you to hit the thumbs up. It helps the algorithm, helps people to see the video who need to see it. And that's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.